Hi guys, my name is Danielle Weaver, and I am the person organizing the next cultural service trip to Guatemala in June of 2017. As some of you know, we did one of these trips last year in January. It was a raging success, so we decided to open the doors to another trip. And the setup is going to be very similar, if not exactly the same, as the last trip. Of course, the experiences I'm sure will vary. But anyway, so a little brief intro for you. For those of you who don't know, Guatemala is located right below Mexico. It is not that far away, even though when you're there you will feel as though you are worlds away from the United States. It's about a 2-hour flight from Miami, about a 3.5-hour flight from Atlanta, and a 2.5-hour flight from Houston. So many ways to get there, and it's not that bad of a trip. There are 4 main goals of this trip that I have. Number 1 is to visit key destinations in Guatemala. So try to show you as much of Guatemala as I can in the 10 days that we are there. The tentative dates at this time, which are fairly set in stone at this point, is June 16th through the 26th, which June 16th is a Friday, 26th is a Monday, so it's a Friday to a Monday with 2 weekends in between. So during that time, we kind of travel around Guatemala during the week, and at the same time, we try to make a conscious effort to not have you in the car that much. So the longest trek we do at once is in one day is 3 hours in the car. So it's not that bad. But we go to 4 different cities total in Guatemala. Also, obviously, experience the culture that the country has to offer. It has several different cultures, not only the Spanish side, but also the Mayan side. We stay in 2 different Mayan towns, both of which have their own language other than Spanish, so it'll be very interesting for you. Also, obviously, offer our help to some amazing souls in need, which we'll talk about in a minute. That's the main purpose of the trip. And my ultimate goal, personally, is to inspire others to come and experience Guatemala in the future through you, which I'm sure will happen naturally. The layout of the trip, it is not only service or only cultural. That was one of the aspects that people liked a lot last time, was that not only were they able to help in the home and experience that, but also they were able to fall in love with the country, and not just one part of the country, but all the parts that they saw, which makes not only the children's home, travel home with you in your heart, but also the country as a whole, and that is my goal. So we spend actually half of the time in the service and half of the time on the cultural side. As far as the service experience, super important part of our trip, we are partnered with Hogar Miguel Magone, and this is where we spend our time. Hogar Miguel Magone is a children's home. Hogar means home. So this is a home for children who they do have parents. They're not technically orphans, but they've been taken away from their parents either due to abuse or the fact that their parents are incarcerated. So these kids are kind of stuck in the middle. They cannot be adopted because their parents still have legal rights, or in some cases the parents have completely disappeared but never signed over their rights. So they really are stuck there until they turn 18 or until they are returned to their family, which is decided by the Guatemalan courts. The home is run by one amazing woman. Her name's Karen. She started it, and I'm not going to tell you the entire story of the home because she will tell you so eloquently the entire story when she's there. She speaks English perfectly, and she will tell you the story from beginning. It's really incredible. There are some days when she wakes up and she doesn't know what the kids are going to eat that day, and then somehow miraculously something always shows up. Somebody shows up with 100 eggs, or somebody shows up with 20 pounds of chicken. It's really amazing how she just has faith that it's going to happen, and it always does, which is amazing. But one of my favorite things about the home is that the kids are also in charge. So here you'll see them, helping get the dinner ready. Some are cleaning the rooms, and you'll see the home is one of the cleanest places I've ever been to in the world. And the kids are in charge of that, so they feel like it is their own. Here on the right-hand side, you'll see a picture of last year. Our project was to take down shoes, so each kid got a brand new pair of tennis shoes and leather school shoes and uniforms, because in Guatemala they cannot go to school unless they have the appropriate shoes and uniforms. So that was a raging success last time. This time, the project we want to do, since we're going in the middle of their school year, is we want to revamp their playground. And you'll see when you're there, the installations or the infrastructure that they have is actually quite spectacular. The rooms and everything like that. But a lot of people see it and they're like, oh, they're fine, they're well off. But it's the day to day that they really have a hard time. The maintenance, because these buildings that were built and the playground that was built, they were built as a one-time project, right? A group comes in, they do it, they do an awesome job, and then they leave. Which, I mean, it's fine. They did an amazing thing, but then she has a hard time with the maintenance of it. So what we want to do is put some maintenance into this. You'll see they have some playground equipment there that's donated by the local McDonald's. We want to clean that, revamp that, paint everything. So everything that's dull, repaint it, and really give them a fun atmosphere. So that's hopefully one of our main project that we're going to be doing. And what's cool, we'll talk about money in a minute, but the cost of completing this project is already built into the cost of the trip per person. And also we spend 4 days total at the home. First day is kind of like they give you a tour and they do a concert. Last time they did some music and they all play different musical instruments. Then we work for about 2.5 days, and then the last day is more free time with the kids. We really want you to interact with the kids. But during those 4 days, we do serve lunch, and we serve lunch in a way that, they can go for seconds and thirds if they want to, which they don't often get to do. And we cook some really fun meals. And so what's cool is that the cost of serving lunch at the home is also built into the price per person. So we'll get to that in a minute. So that is our service project. Now, we spend the weekends at the home, Saturday and Sunday, and then Saturday and Sunday, because that's when the kids are there. During the week, they're at school. So while they're at school, we take advantage and begin our cultural experience. We visit stay in 4 different cities while we're there. And this is where I try to get you to not only fall in love with the kids you meet, but also fall in love with the Guatemala as a whole. The first city you will fly into and leave from, and where we spend our 2 weekends because the home is close to it, is Guatemala City. It's an okay city, just like any major city. It has its pretty parts and its ugly parts, but here we're pretty much, except for a couple of little cultural things, we pretty much go to the home and then back to the hotel after dinner, because here our focus is working at the home. But as I said, we do a couple of things in Guatemala City, one of which the first day we go to El Mercado Central, which is the central market, where you'll see half of it is dedicated to local arts and crafts, which make great souvenirs, which, by the way, the dollar stretches very far in Guatemala, which is great. And then you'll see the other half, which is more dedicated to locals doing their market. So you'll see the meat section and the vegetable section, the fruit section, and last year everybody really got a kick out of that. It's quite amazing to see. So we'll walk around the Mercado Central. On Monday, when we start our traveling around, our first city we go to is Panajachel. Panajachel is right down here. That's the city. And this is Lake Atitlan. It is considered one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. It is breathtaking. It is my favorite place in Guatemala. It is surrounded by 3 volcanoes, which you'll see a photo in a minute. And it is truly incredible. So we spend 1 night in Panajachel, and I'll show you the hotel that we stay in a minute. It's quite amazing. You get a great view of the lake, and we have some really fun activities there in Panajachel. The next day, we actually get on one of the typical boats. I have my guy there that I always call, and he helps us. He takes us right across the lake, which is about a 45-minute trek. Here in this photo, you can see the volcanoes, 1, 2, and then there's one behind here. So we go straight between these volcanoes right here, and we cross over to a town called Santiago. So Panajachel, where we start, and Santiago are the 2 Mayan villages that I was telling you about. That there's not only the Spanish culture, but also the Mayan culture, and actually around the lake there are about 8 different towns, and they all have their own Mayan language, which sounds nothing like Spanish, which is strange, but you'll hear all those different dialects. Santiago is, as far as a location, is my favorite location on the whole trip. It is a place where there's really nothing to do except relax, which is what we go there to do. We stay at a hotel that is very, very rustic. The rooms are actually cottages, and they're all separate. Very typical. It's owned by an American, and even though there is Wi-Fi, as there is Wi-Fi in every hotel where we go, at this particular place during dinner time, we all sit down together, and the owner of the hotel actually shuts off the Wi-Fi from 6 to 8, and Americans freak out, but it's with the purpose, the goal of making us all talk, and we sit with other travelers. It's not just our group. We really have a great time. The food there is also incredible. Anything we eat is either grown at the hotel or in the local market. No preservatives, it's all fresh. If you ask for like a mango smoothie, you will literally go see them chop the mango off the tree and slice it up for you. It's truly incredible. So that's Santiago. And then when we're in Santiago, there's also an optional horseback ride, which about half the group did last time. We had a great time. We go up the side of one of the volcanoes into a high up coffee plantation. It's fairly interesting, so that's also an option. The rest of the group can either, you can sit back and relax, read in a hammock at the hotel, or they have kayaks, they have canoes, they have a pool, and they have a jacuzzi, they have saunas, you can get massages. It's really quite incredible. So those are some fun days there. Then on our way back towards the city, when we start making our way back, we stop at a Mayan town. It was the first capital of the Kingdom of Guatemala. It's not the main ruins. The Mayan civilization was the heart of the Mayan civilization was Guatemala, but the main ruins, the famous ones, are in Petén, which is about an 8-hour drive from the city, so we don't do that on this trip, but at least with Iximche, you get a taste for Mayan ruins. There's also a Mayan ritual site, so we spend a few hours just walking around there, and it's really, really interesting. They loved that last time. And we end up in Antigua, which was the second capital of Guatemala, and it is a Spanish colonial town, which has maintained its Spanish colonial feel. So even though some of the locals hate it, but the cobblestone streets, which are a pain for them, they are not allowed to change them because they really want to maintain that Spanish feel, all the colors. There's very particular rules. It's a very, very safe town. There's amazing things to do there. And what's cool is when we're in Antigua, we kind of split up. So there's so much to do in Antigua that we can't do everything as a group. So if there's something that really interests you, you're free to go off. I think we have a whole day there where you can split off into small groups and do things that are interesting for you. For example, one couple last time, they got a tour of a chocolate factory. Another couple went to a jade museum. There's so much to do in Antigua. So that's pretty interesting there. Also, Finca Philadelphia is something we do as a group there because everybody's interested in coffee when they go to Guatemala. So this is one of the most beautiful coffee plantations in the world. We get a tour of the coffee plant from seed to in the cup. So the entire process, and it's very interesting for us to see the manual labor that it still is. Here you see a picture of the coffee beans actually drying in the sun. And every half hour they have to go around with a shovel and that pattern you see there and just flip the beans so they keep drying. It's still a very manual process, and you'll see that. And then we have lunch at the coffee plantation and get to try some world-class coffee, and you'll see how terrible the coffee is that you drink every morning actually is. But anyway, and you have a chance to actually buy some of that coffee that I'm talking about, and it's actually not that expensive at all once you convert it into dollars. So that was one of the favorites from last year. To give you an idea, just so you have an idea of the value you're getting for your money, I wanted to show you some of the hotels that we stay in. Number one is Barcelona. This is in Guatemala City, and it looks very Americanized because it is. In Guatemala City, though, we have to take into consideration safety. We also take into consideration proximity to the airport. This hotel is right across the street from the airport, so it's very convenient for arrival and departure. It has a great pool and a great hot tub. The rooms are awesome, and what I love about this place, even though it's very Americanized, the breakfast buffet in the morning is very Guatemalan and typical. It is incredible, and that's one of the main reasons we actually stay there, if I have to be completely honest. I've never had a bad experience in Barcelona, so that's why we stay there. And also, when you're, after a hard day's work at the home, you're going to want to come home and be comfortable, so that's what we aim for. So that's Barcelona. We spend, I think, a total of 4 nights in Barcelona at the beginning and at the end of the trip. Then when we go to Panajachel, our first day at the lake, we stay in Puerto Hotel. This picture down here is a view from the rooms, and we all have lakeside or lake view rooms, and they're all in the upper level, so we will all have views like that. It is incredible to have coffee on your balcony that morning. So that's one of my favorite hotels as well. The hotel that I mentioned to you in Santiago that has the very rustic rooms that are cottages, this is what it looks like. This is a view from its pool, and there's a hot tub up here, and this is the volcano that you have right there staring you in the face, and in the back you have 2 more volcanoes right behind you. It is amazing. And then in Antigua, we stay at a very typical place called Hotel Los Pasos. It's just close enough to the Central Park area to where you can easily walk, but far enough away to where it's quiet at night. We have breakfast there every morning together, and last year we stumbled upon this hotel for the trip, and they treated us excellently, and so that's why we are planning on going back there. So it's great, and it's not that big, so we all feel like we're always together. Money talk. A lot of you obviously are going to be interested in money. So the estimated cost per person for this trip is $1,250 based on double occupancy in most hotels. So that means you will have a roommate. You can choose the roommate, or you can say, hey, find me a roommate, or if you don't want a roommate, then you can talk to me and we can kind of adjust the price a little bit. There's always things that we can do. What does this price include? It includes transportation, stay at all of the hotels with one roommate, 3 main meals per day. The only complaint we received last time was that there was too much food, so you will not go hungry. Funds to complete the service project, and funds to provide the meals for all of the children the 4 days we spend at the home, as I mentioned. So hypothetically, if you wanted to go to Guatemala and not spend a dime, you do not have to spend a dime. Everybody does because they shopping money and all of that. What it does not include is the airfare. Airfare is very difficult to include because we have people kind of coming from all over the place, and there's some people who prefer to spend a little bit more money and not have that many layovers, or some people who don't mind doing 4 layovers and saving a few $100s. So everybody's kind of in charge of booking their airfare themselves, which we'll talk about in a minute. Also, shopping money, snacks, and or alcoholic beverages. Alcohol is not included in the price of the trip because everybody, some people don't want it, some people do. So that will be charged separately. And also any extra activities such as ziplining, mule rides, jet skis, or the horseback ride in Santiago. Which, as we get closer to the trip, I send you guys all the options of the extra activities like that so that we can get those all squared away. So that is the cost per person. As far as when we need the payments, it's split into 2. We need part 1, which is $625 per person, due no later than January 1st. So you have until January 1st to pretty much confirm your spot. And part 2, due no later than May 9th. That's a month before, about a month before we go. We can accept payments via PayPal, credit card, or check. So once you pay part 1, you are completely confirmed for the trip. And if you have questions about that, definitely reach out to me as far as the payment options and how we do that. As far as flights, as I said, everybody's in charge of booking their own flight. I do send out notices to people when I see them drop. I'm always checking flights because I love checking flights for some reason. But when I see a really good deal for the route and the days, I do send out an email and say, hey, would recommend booking. I have seen flights from Cincinnati to Guatemala as low as $585, but I've also seen them as high as $950. Last year, people were able to book their flights around $749, flying on Delta. You would need to book your flights arriving anytime, does not matter. You do not need to ask me anytime on Friday, June 9th, and leaving Monday, June 19th. I will be at the airport for every group as they arrive. And if you find a flight that's just ridiculously more cheap arriving on Thursday or leaving on Tuesday, definitely reach out to me, and that just involves getting a hotel room for an extra night, and if that's what you'd like to do, then we can do that. The connecting airports, or the most common ones, are Atlanta, which is Delta, and then Houston is United, and Miami is American. The easiest route from personal experience is Delta. It also tends to be a little bit pricier, but they are always on time. But that is totally up to you, and that's why we do everybody booking their own flights. And that is basically it when it comes to what the trip is all about. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or you can call me as well. My number is 513-478-5182, and we would love to have you on the trip. And I would love to answer any questions you may have to try to get you to come. Thanks so much.